Welcome to the Clifton Worley Show. This week we have Brian Bicknell with us. What's up, Brian?
Hey, how's it going?
Going good, man. I'm just excited to have you on the show here tonight.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're with Spruce Effects,
Yep,
and by the way, like got to try out your demo board a couple months back. Met up with you down in I think Menlo Park,
that's right.
and picked up a board and brought it to Coach Schneider's one day event. And I had a complete blast trying that board out. I would play with it in between, customers coming in and stuff, and I just had a lot of fun with it. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I'd like to kind of before we talk about your pedals and everything, I'd kind of like to get maybe how you got into playing music and how that led you to pedals, and kind of just let you tell your backstory.
Sure. My so the backstory is like I mean you're obviously involved in this, kind of small but very big world. Um, but a lot of us kind of have like a similar to getting into building gear and stuff like that. It's a lot of DIY and a lot of thanks to the internet. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but I actually didn't really start playing guitar until I was like a late teenager. My dad is a very talented musician, and my parents never did like the "you got to take piano lessons or else you're dumb" kind of thing, um, which I really appreciated at the time. But kind of like as an adult, I wish they had forced me to do some of that because
Yeah.
like when I was drawn to it, it was probably for the wrong reasons. Like, oh, I saw my friend playing guitar and like girls liked it, so I'm gonna start playing guitar. And like, but in reality, like my dad had been like imparting all these like brilliant lessons on me for my entire life, and I wasn't paying attention. Um, but yeah, so I started just goofing around when I was about to graduate high school, and then when I was in college, I started getting really interested in like vintage gear, and probably because I couldn't afford anything cool, new stuff, I
Hmm.
guess. And so I started buying up a lot of like old, Silvertone guitars and those brands now that are way too expensive. But back in the day, they were like, pawn shop guitars that you could get for $100 and fix them up a little bit, and they'd play cool and move on to the next thing. That's kind of like what my um, process was. So I ended up buying a lot of guitars, and then I started getting into effects. I actually started building effects essentially at the same time I like learned about what they actually were. Like I started researching, like, oh, what's fuzz and what's this, and I realized that I could buy a kit for $40 and build it, and it would save me like $70 or $80 compared to buying it new. And at the time I was not considering the value of the monetary value of my time,
Right.
but it was a learning experience and it was fun. And so like I actually got into it because I was interested in using effects, but I didn't want to pay $100 or $140 for a big muff or whatever the case may be. So I just dived into it and did what a lot of people do and just like started reading the forums. And at the time, this was probably like, I don't know, 2005, maybe about then. Yeah.
Mm.
That was like, yeah. Um, and I just like all the forums, the gear page was the thing. They, Runoff Groove was a big DIY thing. General Guitar Gadgets was another big DIY thing. And I feel like most people who don't have formal engineering backgrounds like sort of cut their teeth on those sites. And it was just like it was my favorite kind of learning. Like as fast or as slow as I wanted it to be, you're actually doing something, building something, and if it didn't work, you just sort of keep going until it works, or you move on. And it was just like a new way of doing school for me, which was kind of refreshing. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. I don't know if I'm rambling or
No,
you haven't.
that's no. I guess I wanted to ask, like, what was it? Because fuzz was like the most simple pedal you could build that drew you there.
Yeah, I actually got in like when I started developing the company idea and the brand stuff. I was drawn to fuzz mainly because I don't want to like get super technical, but like germanium as a you know element or a device was appealing to me because of the variability of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like the idea of making something, and even if I technically made it correct, like based on the actual circuit, the 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 nuances of what was behind the amplification or the distortion element of it was still kind of up in the air. Like that was like really appealing because it's exciting when you turn it on for the first time, and even if it sounds bad, like that's still kind of cool because it's like you didn't really know what it was going to sound like until you stuck those transistors in there. And
Mm-hmm.
then if they didn't work out, then you moved on. And if they worked out great, you tune them up a bit and it sounds awesome and that kind of thing. But actually, the first pedal I ever built was a Supro like amp clone pedal that Runoff Groove designed, and I bought a kit for it, and it was just like it was modeled after like the old Supro amps, and that was like 2005 or 2006. So I actually didn't get into fuzz until a little bit later, but like I always just like drive and distortion. I like
Yeah.
being so
Yeah. Well, that's kind of surprising because it seems like I don't know, maybe in the last like 5 or 6 years, like we've seen the resurgence with the super amps and everything, and I can't remember like that far back. I wasn't such a gearhead that I even
yeah,
knew what super was, but I remember it not being like something that the a lot of the guitarists knew about those amps, what they were
yeah.
capable of.
So actually, are you familiar with Tone Quest, the
No,
magazine?
no.
So the Tone Quest report is this like if you go to their website, it looks like a GeoCity site from the 90s.
Uh-huh.
It's like pretty garbage. But they have like a print magazine, and they kind of like in my opinion, in my experience, I obviously am not an expert, but like in the mid to early 2000s, they started talking about these super amps and these old, pawn shop and department store guitars as like being somewhat desirable. So I think that was why people kind of got back into it. Um, but yeah, I didn't really know about it until my uncle actually like bought like he bought an old Supro little combo because apparently Jimmy Page used it on whatever insert Zeppelin album here, and um, so that's kind of how I became aware of it. I'm not even sure when I built that pedal, the Supro clone. I don't think I'd ever even seen a Supro amp in person. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't think it was until oh gosh. Let's see, 2009, I think
yeah,
2009, 2010, somewhere around there. I rented This Might Get Loud,
yeah,
and that was the first like I'd heard of some of this gear. Like I was aware of Silvertone, of course, but like you know, hearing about these super amps and how that Jimmy Page he didn't use like the Marshall stack in the studio and all those
right,
tones were generated, and it just blew my mind. I was like
yeah,
everything that I perceived about what that sound and that rock and roll sound was like. Oh my goodness, I was wrong.
yeah. No, totally. Yeah, I love that documentary. I really like how they kind of portrayed the you don't need a stack to sound huge kind of thing.
Right.
Um, and I've never, unfortunately, never gotten too much into recording, but like what recording engineers are able to do with little gear or really specific gear that you would never, conceive of playing, live with is amazing to me. and especially pedals too. I feel like pedals in the studio are a whole different ball game than what you're doing in your garage or at a live show.
Absolutely. Lot of flavors needed, I think,
Yeah,
in the studio.
for sure.
So so you went from just being a casual player to going down this rabbit hole of all this gear and these forums and everything, and this kind of sounds like the journey a lot of guys are on now, like in the Facebook groups, but it was like the pre-existing, like the gear page and these the social media then wasn't what it's like now.
No, yeah, totally. That's yeah. I mean, I was always keen on the internet, and I used it as like a library almost, which I think is not unique. Um, but the social aspect, like the podcasts that all y'all are doing and the Facebook groups, like that was not even, I didn't even think, like that never even crossed my mind as like a possibility of, my music friends were people who I knew for years, and I sold and their friends and that kind of thing. And it never even occurred to me that social media or the social aspect of the internet would, I didn't doubt it ever, but it just wasn't like it wasn't even on the radar when I got into doing stuff.
Yeah,
It was, yeah, which is fascinating because of how powerful it is now. And like, I attribute any whatever mediocre success I have or have had is because of Instagram and Facebook, and I don't know how to use those things hardly. Like, and it's really funny, how connected and how fast relationships can be built just by having a common interest and having a group of people around that interest together at the same time.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I think I want to dive off into talking about that in a minute about kind of the use of social media and how that in the boutique gear world, how that has been like really pushing that and feeding those communities. But I want to get back to um kind of how you okay, so you're making these pedals and you're getting all this information. What point does Spruce Effects kind of like occur to you? Hey, this is something I want to do, and I want to create this brand.
yeah. So it just kind of evolved, I think. So like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think I can picture it, but I don't remember like what pedal I was building. But I started posting ads on Craigslist when I was in college, like after I sort of taught myself how to do some of this stuff. And I look back at some of that work and I cringe, like most people do with their early work. And I just like posted random ads like on the musical instruments part of Craigslist, saying like, hey, like I'm building these fuzz pedals. I want to be able to fund like my next idea or whatever. Like, let me know if you're interested. And then I made like a really sketchy website. And I don't even think it had e-commerce on it. I think it was like, contact me if you would like to buy one or something. And
Mm-hmm.
and I and that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, most people, even in the early days of the internet, were not going to like go on Craigslist looking for some no-name pedal builder. And so I kind of had to like adjust the strategy. And so I actually ended up doing a lot more business fixing pedals or modding stuff, than I did selling original things. And I didn't have any sense of like branding, or like nobody was like UV printing back then. So it was all silk screen, and that was a huge pain in the butt. And so like I was selling bare enclosure pedals, and it just wasn't like, I wasn't even thinking about the business. I just wanted to make stuff and not go into debt. So it wasn't until probably like 2014 or 15, maybe like 2015. Yeah, wow. Where I was talking to my wife, and I had been obsessing over spruce effects, and I actually like created the brand, quote unquote, like way long ago, like like in the early days, and you can read about that on the website. But I I didn't like actually consider it to be something I was interested in, like to be a passion sort of project or hobby until probably like 2015. And I had been building pedals and selling the whole time. I just hadn't like thought about the brand, or I didn't even have Instagram at the time or any of that stuff. And then my wife noticed that I had been like really kind of investing a lot of time into it. And she sort of encouraged me to take it a little bit more seriously than I had been. And it was kind of funny because she was basically like, what the hell are you doing? You're spending all this time doing this stuff, and you're not actually like thinking about it as a thing that you could do, and not even to like make money or anything like that, but just something that you take seriously and really put efficient energy into. I was just kind of building. And so I thought about that a lot, and I just kind of said screw it, and kind of invested in making a better website and developing a little, introductory line of stuff that I was really passionate about. And then that's kind of where it led to. And then we're here a few years later. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that like grabbed me about like the name and the graphics and everything, and it didn't totally make sense until like I came to through the Bay Area, and we had talked. I had stopped, picked up that board,
Oh
and
yeah.
you had told me about, hey, there's this really cool beach if you drive through the mountains and whatever.
Yeah.
And of course the the lay of the land and the just everything is different out there than it is here in the southeast.
Yeah.
And then it occurred to me, I was like, I was driving through the mountains, and I saw like all this redwood and these
Yeah.
really monstrous trees, and it started to make sense. I was like, no, this is like really tapping into like the surroundings and the background of like where you're at.
Yeah. That's good. That's also kind of sad because I think a lot of people who've never been to this area of the country don't have that experience. So I need to do a better job, like communicating the power of all the cool stuff that's here.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it really spoke to like the background of what's going on, like just in your location, in your region. I really thought that was cool.
yeah, thank you. I love the West and the Pacific Northwest, and if I were to make like a San Francisco Bay Area tourism guide, um, you would spend very little time in San Francisco, the city, um, and a lot of time on the peninsula and north of the bay, because I don't know it as a tourist necessarily, but I feel like there's a lot of um, missed opportunities in people spending a lot of money and time traveling from really far away to, seeing the Golden Gate Bridge is great. San Francisco is an amazing city, but we've got so much cool stuff. I suppose people don't know about it or see it as much because it doesn't make as much money. But I think kind of what you did, and your strategy was like, oh, I've only got like a day. I want to see some cool stuff, and we talked a bit about it. And I was like, what you did, I think, is like exactly what anyone should do if they had a day to spend driving around and seeing some of the natural stuff, because we're associated with the Silicon Valley, and we're down the street from Facebook and Google and all this high stress, high anxiety, money, 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 and like, but I think people originally came here and stayed here because of the trees and the ocean.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And I don't think I just got back from like Florida Beach a couple
yeah,
weeks ago, and I've not been to a beach like that one that like I came out on what was it US Highway 1 that
yeah.
runs.
I
Yeah,
think you took 84, 92 over the mountains and
yeah,
the Highway 1. Yeah,
yeah. And I it's like I've never been to something. It was almost like remote and like
yeah,
not anything like the beaches here, but
Yeah.
it was like it was just interesting. It's like you look out and there's the Pacific and it's super super foggy and
Yeah.
there's this cliff that drops off, like more than 100 feet probably, and
Yep.
it was just really cool. Like, here it's like very commercialized. If there's any beach property, like it's gonna be, condos and
Yeah.
fancy restaurants, and it's like, wow, this is so different. It was like this was like nature, just the way it should be.
Yeah. Totally. That's exactly how I feel. It's uh, like the Central Coast is where the mountains meet the sea, and it's like it's remote and like you said, it's not like a touristy place. I mean, it can get busy in summer months or whatever, but like you can go on a Tuesday afternoon and not see anyone, and you just drove 45 minutes from one of the busiest, most high activity economic centers in the entire world, and it's I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty powerful comparison, and so I'm really thankful for living, um, living in this place. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a really cool background. Now I'd like to dive into some of the pedals
sure,
and kind of like you walked me through like this pedal does this, and you had
yeah,
like the old growth and the saltwater fuzz, and
right,
kind of tell me like the different flavors and what each one does.
sure, yeah. We definitely, for better for worse, sort of fuzz is kind of our general direction. Um, our last release, like original release, was a sort of boost drive, and we can talk about that. And our new one that's coming out is a distortion, but it's all dirt basically. But yeah, so we love germanium, or that's kind of like my thing. I I have a lot of opinions, some strong, some not so strong about it, and I don't know if I like it better than silicon or whatever, but I just like keep coming back to it. Um, and yeah, so the saltwater fuzz is we use different transistors for it than the some of the other tone benders. I feel like it's a little bit smoother, but it is a tone bender bass pedal, and we hand measure and select every single. There are three. It's a three transistor tone bender circuit, and so that's pretty labor intensive. It's a simple circuit otherwise, but it you know that one, our main objective is consistency and quality of the sound. I don't think you can beat it, especially for $150 shipped. That was like one of our first um, like aha moments where I was like, dang, I really like this thing, and I love tone benders, and we kind of tweaked it a bit and found the transistor trios that we really liked, and hopefully we don't run out. I think we've got a few years left worth of transistors, but some of them aren't super available, and that's kind of a bummer. But that's just name of the game.
Right,
And
right.
the old growth, that one actually has gotten a lot of uh, for us at least, not like big time, but a little bit more buzz lately because we put out a bass tune version um, where it's a muff bass circuit with a lot of modifications and additions, but we we started tweaking it for bass, and we sent one out to Juan already um, from Pedals and Effects. I don't know if you know him. He's a really great guy. Um, he was in the Mars Volta, and I think
Okay.
he's touring with Marilyn Manson now, and he really liked it, and he was like, yeah, this is a really cool fuzz for bass specifically, and so we started making that one a little bit more full time, and that's an option. Um, but it's a little bit less compressed and a little bit more open. It responds better to the low end. And So that one's been really fun. I really like that one a lot. I don't play a ton of bass, but I yeah, I like that one. The Rainier Fuzz is it's also muff based, but it's not really. We have this really funny story where I got a random email from this guy, this Italian guy, like a couple years ago, and he wanted to know how to like build a circuit in some software. He wanted to know how to like create a circuit board in software, like we all do, and he had never done it before. And he was like, I found this pedal. It's called the Gen Jumbo Fuzz. And it was this clone, it was a muff clone that this Italian company put out in I think it was late 70s, I think. And so I like Skyped him and we talked, every weekend for whatever, a couple months or something. And I taught him how to use the software and it was just for fun. He was a great guy. And his goal was to build his own Gen Jumbo Fuzz. And so inadvertently, I had like made the circuit for this pedal, like because I was teaching him how to do it. So I was doing it on my own and trying to make it accurate and sending him files and whatever. And then so I had some boards printed and I found some old germanium transistors that worked for the gate circuit and like I fell in love with the thing and it was just so cool. So I designed a product around it thanks to this guy who I'd never even met, who wanted me to teach him for free how to use circuit design software so he could make his own. And so that's how that product came about. And I don't think we'll do any more muffs besides those two, but those are my two favorite ones
Yeah.
as far as muffs go.
I was gonna say on that one that one of my favorite
Yeah.
things was the gating.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like if you know anything about circuits, like if you look at the gate circuit, it's just this trashy like compressor thing. Like I don't even know what they were thinking. like it doesn't even make any sense. But I built it pretty true to the original schematic, and the transistors are a pain in the butt to find and get sounding good. But I kind of like how the gate knob itself is like pretty temperamental. Like it's temperature sensitive. If you're using high output pickups, it's going to respond differently. And so in that way, it's not like a very good studio pedal, but it's fun to play with, and you can get some dying, sputtery sounds, and it quiets down some of the higher gain settings too. So yeah,
Well, one of the other things I've noticed too is like on that pedal and the old growth,
yeah,
like the names of the control sets.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I thought of most of those at the very beginning when I started taking this a little bit more seriously a few years ago. And I mean, they're kind of like I look at them now and kind of roll my eyes. Like some people think they're kind of cool, but they're kind of corny. Like if you think about it. But I just try to think of like tree related control names that kind of explain what it does. So like ring is like a tree ring, and it grows outward as the tree gets older, and so that represents volume. Bark is it's typically pretty rough, so it represents like the fuzz level, and then yeah, that's kind of the method behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it fits the branding just perfectly though, and I like kind of where your head's at in that.
Yeah, cool. And then yeah, and then girth is tone. It's sort of like how thick or thin it is. Um, I didn't realize it at the time, but it could have a naughty connotation to it. I didn't intend for that. So
Yeah. I think fuzz pedals kind of always get off that way a little bit though.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I hope I don't offend anyone with my branding attempts. Yeah, and then I don't know, what else did we not talk about? Oh, the Gigantium drive. That's a new one.
Yeah.
Um, that's like our first. original. Like that circuit is very original. And I have to shout out John Snyder, hashtag the original John Snyder, from Electronics Audio Experiments. He's a very dear friend, and he is, in my opinion, very humble opinion. He's probably the most brilliant pedal designer out there today, and he was instrumental in the new one that we're putting out. I don't want to talk about that one too much because it's not even ready. But the Gigantium Drive, what he's kind of the brains behind that. We worked together really closely for a while, and I took my idea to him, and he graciously said it was pretty cool and helped me make it come to life. But that's the dual. It's essentially a dual sort of boost slash overdrive. And that one, it comes in the sideways package on the smaller enclosure, which I really worked hard to do. It's not a super complicated circuit, but it's pretty tight insides. My pedals are pretty big usually, but people seem to like the smaller stuff, so I obliged. And but yeah, it's got a germanium boost on the first channel, and then a silicon overdrive, and it really is tuned to interact with your amp. I know a lot of people say that. I would never call it dynamic or transparent or any of that garbage, but it's for sure designed to push your amp and kind of piss it off a little bit and see what it can do.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and
yeah,
that was one of the fun things. It was like that was one of the more fun pedals, I think, because it just it's like when you're thinking about gain staging,
yeah,
and you keep pushing more, and it's like how, like, if you're playing an amp that's like set clean, it's gonna sound one way, and then it's like you play a
yeah,
little dirty, it's gonna, push that. And I love that relationship, like a pedal can do, or it even changes with like the guitar that you're
yep,
playing,
yeah,
if it's a
yeah.
high output, low output, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. One thing I think people who are a little skeptical of drive pedals, maybe like some like blues guitar purists who are really into just like guitar amp. I want to hear my fingers. I want to hear everything. And if my amp needs to grind a little bit, I'm just gonna make it louder. Like I totally appreciate that, and that's kind of like the perspective that I was coming from, where like it's solid state analog technology. So it's not digital, but it is very much a relationship between the guitar you're playing, how hard you're playing, and how your amp is set, rather than providing all of the clipping, via distortion circuit. So that was like the goal, is because I love boosters. I love turning old tube amps up way too loud. And I was just like, I want to make something that people can use, at almost no distortion level, but also like if they're playing through, like a Mad Amp or like a, Orange OR 120 or something like that, like really like heavy, they can really kind of make their stuff scream. So
Yeah. Well,
I didn't do a very good job marketing that. So I need to I need to find a demo guy to like show you can go from like colored boost to like doom in the same pedal.
yeah,
If you know anyone, let me know.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's see. I think we missed the Yeti.
Oh yeah, so the Yeti, that's sort of like a little stepchild project. So I have a friend, and I'll shout him out. Recycled pedal boards. He he always messages me with like weird projects. He's like, "Hey, can you build me a fuzz and blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." And so he had this idea. He wanted a Zonk machine, which is a Mark One tone bender variant. We won't get too hard into it, but it's a little bit different than a Mark One tone bender, and it's got like a little bit more gate and a little bit more sizzle, and every single one of them sounded different than the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how it worked. But he was like, yeah, and I don't know, I really want a Yeti on it, and I was like, okay. So he sent me this image of this Yeti, and I wasn't trying to steal art off the internet and make a pedal from it. So I found out where this graphic was from, and it was this tattoo artist from the Czech Republic. And so I found her Instagram and I messaged her and I was like, "Hey, can I license this Yeti artwork that you did? I love it. I have a friend who wants to make a pedal and I want to print it, you know, X units or whatever. And let me know if you license your stuff." And she was like, responded. She didn't speak English super well, but she was excited and she was like, "Yeah, just send me two of them." And so I was like, "Really? Like, I just have to send you two of the fuzz pedals and I can use it?" And she said, "Totally fine." So I developed the digital sort of artwork for it, printed some of them, and I originally did them like point to point using like new old stock components, which is very labor intensive and it's very expensive. And that did okay. And then I started thinking about like, oh, I'm just going to make a PC board version of it and like drop the price in half. And so I did that, and that did pretty well. Um, and then I discontinued it because essentially I ran out of transistors and time um, to build those ones. But that tattoo artist helped me design the graphics for the new pedal, which is another sort of back to how crazy the internet is. Like, I don't know this person. She's amazing. I love her artwork, and I'm working with her in a professional capacity because some other random internet friend I have never even met in person Googled Yeti graphic on the internet and found this cool tattoo she did. Like, so it's kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I mean, the art, that's the thing I like about your pedals is the artwork and the
Uh,
branding, and
yeah.
that's a really cool Yeti, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't draw that, so but I appreciate that. She would be very happy to hear that people enjoyed that. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Now I have a question. You did a collaboration with
Yes.
Pelican Noise Works.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
I hate that guy. Yeah.
um, and apparently I've got some friends
Oh yeah.
who like are just scourging the internet, like trying to find where they can get one of these. And I guess it's like that was just so many was going to be made, and that was it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like Leon and I, we talk all the time, and he's we send each other crazy ideas all the time, whatever. And I I don't remember. He'll have to fact check me on this. So if he's listening and I'm saying this wrong, please call me out. But I I think like randomly we were chatting one night and I was like, we should do a Germanium Pelotar. And I actually didn't even know. I don't even think I knew like much about that circuit at the time.
Hmm.
Um, but I was just like, Germanium's my thing. I love the Pelotar. Like, screw it. Let's make a friggin' Germanium version, whatever that means. I don't even know yet. And I think we started talking about it, and then it took a while from when that conversation to actually like birth it. But yeah, we just sort of mailed each other prototypes, and I was laying out the circuit and trying to fit it in the enclosure, even though it was. If you ever looked inside a Pelotar, it's pretty tight fit. And adding a bunch of stuff to the circuit in the same size enclosure is, you're working with finite space, so it was a challenge to get the board to fit. And so we were kind of mailing stuff back and forth, trying out different diodes, and then finally we were like, okay, this is pretty cool. Let's see how it goes. And we were like, oh, let's make 50. We didn't even know if we could get 50 people to be interested, and people seemed to like it. And so, yeah, I don't know. We kind of joke time to time about making more, but there's no plan to make more. So Leon, if you're listening, the people want it. We should make more. That's my opinion. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you could totally sell some more, but I understand
Yeah,
if you guys don't, but um yeah, this definitely it's kind of one of those like cult things. It's where guys
yeah,
are looking for it.
yeah. It's a cool pedal. I mean, the Pelotar is awesome, anyways, and we okay. I remember something kind of interesting now. Maybe people are interested in this. I remember um putting a germanium boost in front of the Pelotar one night and thinking like, dang, this is so cool, but it's so noisy. Like it's like the
Mhm.
noisiest pedal ever. And so like I never even thought that we could stuff, both things in one box and see how it goes. So part of the design objective was to get it to be like tolerably quiet, I guess. Not that it's quiet, but it's definitely usable. Um, Whereas when you boost like any sort of high gain situation, you're gonna inject some noise. But I think we did a pretty good job with the layout of the circuit and the way we designed some of um, the noise challenges to sort of get those within reasonable range. Um, but yeah, it's a cool pedal. I love mine, and I have a lot of the circuit boards, Leon. So I don't know, maybe we should make some more.
Yeah, totally. I could see it being successful. Um, let's see. I'm reading some questions here. Some guys in the group wanted to ask you.
Oh, are you on Facebook?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I should get up in there. Hold on, let me see. But yeah, go ahead, fire away.
yeah. See, Michael Newman wants to know what your favorite pedal that someone else makes, and then what would maybe be your favorite pedal that you make.
Um, my favorite pedal that someone else makes. Oh my gosh, that's such a hard question. The funny thing is, and I might lose some credibility here. I am not a guitar pedal addict like all y'all weirdos. I don't buy a bunch of pedals. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but let's see. I'm gonna say my favorite pedal that someone else makes that I've never played, and then I'll say my favorite pedal that someone else makes that I have played. So I really want Ascending, which is the analog delay that Electronic Audio Experiments just put out. I don't know if you've seen that one. Um, it's like if people understood like what John put into that thing, like I don't know, it's like a game changer delay pedal in a world of a million delay pedals, and it's just such a cool circuit. Um, I let's see, I really like my half horse from Pelican. Um, that's just a cool circuit. Um, and something, let me think of one more. I don't know. I kind of want a I love vintage effects. So like if I could get my hands on an original tone bender
Mm-hmm.
or range master, I think I think that would be like sort of my happy place. As far as new pedals, I'd really like to try I don't know, the Red Panda Particle is a cool pedal. Um, yeah, I don't know. Not very exciting answers. I don't have like a. Sorry about that, bud.
No, I think that's cool. Like for me personally, like
Yeah,
I would want any kind of those vintage pedals that like
yeah,
especially those old fuzzes like to just have to crack open and just see and kind of reverse engineer and like that.
yeah,
I totally would be along on that
yeah,
train.
for sure. I mean, the real question that Michael should have asked is what's my favorite vintage guitar amp? And then we could talk for days on that.
Well, now you've got my curiosity up.
Yeah, I don't know. I love working on old amps. And one of the first ones that I like learned to tolerate was the Silvertone 1484, the Twin 12 that everyone knows now. And I probably owned, I don't know, a dozen or so of those over the years. And that amp is just like, it's so, I mean, it's famous for a reason. Jack White uses it for a reason, but it's just such a cool amp, and it's such a piece of crap. Like, as far as a electronics activity goes, it's whoever, I mean, I don't know who designed that thing or what, but there were a lot of bad decisions made. But for some reason, and this is why I like vintage gear, like bad decisions do not mean bad gear. Um, Whereas nowadays, I feel like if you make a bad decision making some gear, people are gonna notice and you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I don't know. Oh, and Michael also asked, What's my favorite pedal that I make? Um, ah, Lately it's been the Yetis, but I just made a bunch of those since we stopped making them, and I just got a new appreciation for Mark One tone benders and transistor selecting. Um, it's really fun to build the Rainier fuzz, because in the gate section, the transistor is so important. Um, I kind of like hearing it not work, um, and because when you get it to work and how it's supposed to sound, it's like super satisfying. And that's one of my favorite layouts on the PC board. Most people don't care about that kind of garbage, but when you build a bunch of stuff at once, if your layout isn't fun or interesting or good, it's cumbersome and annoying. Um, the Gigantium drive is probably my favorite sounding one. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to build. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's see. Emily Harris, we're gonna go to hers.
Oh yeah.
And we had talked about this earlier about maybe touching on Nashville a little bit, but yeah. To answer her question, how was Nashville, and how was that guitar from Aaron?
Um, so I lived in Nashville this summer to go to graduate school. Totally unrelated to guitar pedals. um, and I went into the experience with the hopes of maintaining the momentum of the pedal biz, and foolishly, I thought that was possible. I had to put some of it on the back burner. So if anyone's listening, I sincerely apologize if there are any delays. I pride myself on really fast turnarounds on custom builds and whatnot. And there were some people who waited a couple weeks, and that's not the end of the world, but I definitely felt bad about that. But yeah, so I went to Nashville with, a couple boxes of building gear. I set up a little pseudo shop, and I didn't bring a guitar or an amp because, as everyone knows who goes on an airplane, those are very annoying things to carry. And so I reached out to Facebook, um, asking if anyone knew anyone in Nashville, and Emily hardcore hooked it up. She hooked me up with two of her friends, and Aaron. He had this. This is kind of funny. So he works as a studio engineer in East Nashville, and he was like, "Yeah, we have this Strat that no one in the studio uses. It just collects dust." Um, and I forgot who donated it. It was like a metalcore band. Like, I don't know. It was like a semi-famous. If I can remember, I'll let you know. But it was like, I don't know. Um, oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll come back to it. And so it was it was one of those Buddy Guy polka dot strats. I don't know if you've seen those.
Oh yes.
It's so corny. I actually saw Buddy Guy in concert as a teenager, and it was a really cool experience with one of those. And this was like, like a made in Mexico
Hmm.
copy. Um, it actually played really great, and I wasn't a huge Strat fan, and I think I'm gonna buy a Strat now just because of that guitar. Um, I like Telecasters, but this thing was so cool, and um, I got an amp, a little Marshall 5 watt from one of Emily's other friends. Alan, and he drove this amp to my apartment because I didn't have a car and let me borrow it, and I sold him some pedals at a discount, and it was really cool. So thank you, Emily.
Yeah, she's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, Co Schneider, and I don't know what he means by this. Maybe you do.
Uh
Uh, your best moose call.
huh. Hmm. I don't know why he's asking that. I'm trying to think of it. My family lives in New Hampshire. I love Alaska, but I don't particularly like moose. Um, that's my best moose call, Co. Sorry, buddy.
No, that's
And that
awesome.
was
Like you like just really did that.
no, that was a YouTube video.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, don't. Yeah, if I was making those sounds, you should hang up this call and call the police or the hospital. Give me an ambulance.
Oh man. That 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 I don't know what made me think about that. You I guess the moose thing. But back when came through Menlo Park,
Yeah,
you were like fixing to leave to go to Alaska. And I know
yeah.
this is completely unrelated to gear, but how was that trip?
It was amazing. It was I work in education and during the daylight hours. I don't know if anyone knew that, but and so every year I plan a spring trip, and this year it was Alaska. This is the second time, and it's if you like any of this stuff, like as far as our branding goes, and you've never been to Alaska, like it for me it was I've been quite a few times now, and every time is like a pretty transformative experience. It's there are so many beautiful natural places in the United States anywhere you go. I mean, I love all different ecosystems and whatnot, but Alaska has this, and it's sort of cliche because it's known as the last frontier
Right.
and all that stuff, but it's like you get this you feel wild when you're there, like, and the level of wild that you sort of engage with is totally dependent on your willingness to take risks and whatnot. You can go super comfortable, hang out in Anchorage, go on some day hikes, maybe like do a couple drives, road trip here or there, or you can like straight up go into the wilderness where no one has literally ever been, and like that's a pretty powerful just visual to experience. And it's just an amazing place. I highly recommend everyone to go, even if you aren't sort of super interested in nature in general or even adventure, because you can do very non-adventurous things and still have a really cool experience in Alaska. So that's my Alaska plug.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah,
one other thing is the day that I stopped by, we actually
yeah,
met in the parking lot of the
yeah,
school you're at,
yeah,
before school started, and you were showing me um you that this new workshop, that you were going to be like in essence the shop teacher there at that school, and I think you said that you were even going to teach them how to do like go through some electronics and maybe even some circuits and building things
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So I run the maker space is what they call it. That's like the hot like education term. But essentially, what it is it's the basic theory of a makerspace is um, it's a place where people, and in this context students, can go to build things, create things in structured and unstructured ways. It's kind of like the philosophy behind it. Like most of the good work that comes out of makerspaces is through passion projects. A lot of um, technology people have hack spaces or maker spaces where they build software and hardware and robots and things, and a lot of groundbreaking stuff has come out of those. But for kids, it's really just a place where you can learn some sort of technical skills, how to use some tools, and build cool stuff. and like that's sort of one of the objectives. But I've run a pedal building class with some students as an elective. Um, we have a student actually last year built a soldering station, sort of like workstation that's mobile and modular, and that was kind of like a leadership project that they did. And so we've got some of the tools and um, resources to get kids into some basic electronics. My forte is audio stuff, so that's kind of what I steer them in the direction of. But a lot of it comes down to soldering skills and safety and like how does this stuff work? What's the basic core principles? But also like you know I helped a kid design a fuzz pedal and we built it and ran a class where he taught like 10 of his friends and parents of his friends how to build fuzz, and like that was cool too. So
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a really cool. I'm very lucky to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the idea of like what you guys were doing, and like you took me through this other place, I think, where like they were growing baby chickens, and it was just
Yeah.
it's just never see anything like that here in my immediate area, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're trying to do cool stuff. So hopefully, and if anyone wants to come visit and you're in the Bay Area, I would love to have you. So we love having visitors.
Yeah. Let's see. One last thing. I said we were going to get back to this, and we didn't really touch on it. Uh, the use of the Instagram and Facebook, like
Yeah.
in the acceleration of your brand. Um, is there like what are your thoughts on that, and maybe like some steps, missteps? Um, because I think a lot of I mean, this is kind of where our community is right now in
Right.
the gear community, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the world we live in. So I don't know. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think I don't have like an actual strategy that's based in research or data. Um, I One of my I think my biggest challenges is posting frequency and like overall engagement. I don't. I actually envy a lot of you all who can sort of consistently do the Facebook thing. I try really hard to like hop in and post and respond. Like I got on DIY stomp boxes today and responded to someone, but like for the most part, I find that challenging, and I think that's probably not done me a ton of service as far as exposure for who I am and being a helpful or engaged contributor to all the cool communities that you guys are doing. Um, but Instagram really has been an interesting experience where getting people to follow you based on simply the pictures that you're posting, like that's such a fascinating phenomenon where real life interactions don't tend to work like that. There's a lot more personalization in building a relationship, but if you create cool content, people like nowadays, and even me, like get like hooked on it, follow these hashtags, and it's like I want to see what the next band meme 666 is going to post, like that guy, or like even recently this year or last year, like the Shy Boys and their sort of comedy, and Gear Talk and Tone Mob, of course. Like I just like I don't know, it's such a interesting experience, and getting a bunch, getting followers and posting sales, and people I don't know, I had a guy once who messaged me and was like blown away that I responded, and I was like, dude, I'm blown away that you were like motivated enough to message me and ask me this question about this fuzz. Like it's such a strange, interesting little world. And a lot of people criticize social media, and I think like from an educator's perspective, I have some commentary about that. But I definitely have experienced firsthand like real valuable relationships being built um, through the technology. So as far as being valuable to the community of gear, um, I definitely think that it's not a fad or superficial in any way. Like the friendships that I've made, with some of you guys are just important to me as the friends that I had in high school or college or at work. Um, and so I don't know. That's kind of my little rant about that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting social experiment to see how far that it goes with this. And I was talking with somebody previously on the show, and was talking about I just hope this boutique bubble never busts. Like
Yeah.
I really like where it's at. Uh, Kind of this sense of change in the whole gear industry. And I know Nam's gonna start looking a little different,
Yeah.
and all these things that contribute to that community. But I really like the sense of direction, and it's a lot. The barrier to entry is not there like it used to be.
Right. Um, yeah. I mean, that can be a double-edged sword too, because I know pedal builders feel it like, at the end of the day, like who wants another fuzz pedal? Like I do. Some of you guys want it, but not everybody.
Right.
And so there's the barrier to entry is low. How and the pathway to success is long and hard, but I feel like that kind of what you were describing just now is like there's this energy and camaraderie. Like I think if I didn't have the connections, with some of the people we've talked about in this chat and just like in the Facebook groups, like I would find a reason to stop doing it. Because obviously most of us are not making a ton of money. Um, but I still want to do it, because of that other stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. And there's parallels between you guys who are building and you know the podcast thing, that there's just so many of them. But like I still believe everybody that wants to be podcasting should be podcasting it.
totally.
Right. And it's kind of like fuzz. Like the more fuzz, the more fun. And
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't. There's enough to go around, and
Yeah.
so yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such, and I think that a lot of people criticize boutique, especially in the pedal world, like where it's like, oh, what does boutique even mean? Like, do you have to like be poor and like building stuff, huffing lead smoke in your garage with this like rare transistor to be like boutique? Or like, what if you have your stuff half made overseas and then you get it shipped to you and you do final assembly in your shop? Like, is that boutique? And I don't think any of that matters. It's more about the mentality that you're bringing to the products. Um, and the way that you're interacting with your customers. And I think the only thing that prevents, in my opinion, people from maintaining that like boutique aesthetic, and not just like look, but like the feel of their brand, is when they stop caring about the like, you know, 19-year-old kid who bought their fuzz brand new with their allowance that they saved up. Like the minute that you stop caring or valuing that kid, like to me, that's when you, and it's not even about money. You can be making $1 million and still interacting with those people. But when you decide that it's not worth it, like to me, that kind of takes away from the overall boutiqueness, if you will, the essence of why people are so interested in these kinds of products and that stuff.
Totally. And it's the entrepreneurial spirit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, awesome. We could keep going on, but I just, I really appreciate you, taking the time just to talk about your, making pedals, and your perspective from playing, and how that shaped, what you do, and the love of old vintage gear, and your thoughts on, where the market's headed, and it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. I had a great time. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I just want to take a minute here before we close out the episode,
Sure.
and invite everybody. Maybe you're new to listening to this episode because you know Brian, and you've never listened to this episode before. I would, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, I'd love for you to check out more of the episodes and subscribe, follow. We've got really fun Facebook group that a lot of the interaction goes on, that builds these episodes, comes out of that. And you just find me on Facebook. There's a group and there's a page. And um also just started a Patreon. uh and I'm not going to put a lot of pressure there on our listeners, but if you feel so inclined to be part of the process of contributing, there's ways to get involved there, and you just go to Patreon, the Cliff DeWorley Show, and you can find us there. So appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and join the discussion with us in the groups. And Brian's in there, and we, if you have any questions about what we talked about, you can ask him there, and love to keep the discussion going. So thank you again, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.